Hello again, Year 12. I hope you are well today. This is Miss Wills again, and we're going to be going through the next lesson in your passion booklet today, which is learning English. This you will find on page 22 in your booklet, so if you could just flick through to page 22, please, that would be brilliant. So what I would like you to do first of all, you will see on this slide, there is a phrase, and it says, all the faith he something 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 something, no effect on the outcome of his life. Now then, there are 4 words missing there. The 4 words that are missing is in fact the same word repeated 4 times. Now I would like you to have a go and think about which word can actually replace those X's 4 times round and still make sense. So it's one word. So I'd like you to pause this clip and give that a go for me, please. Okay, hopefully you've given that a go, and you may or may not have come up with it, but here is the answer. So all the faith he had had no effect on the outcome of his life. So there is the word had there used 4 times, okay? Now to look at, that just looks wrong, doesn't it? But if you actually read the sentence outright, it makes perfect sense. And this is just another wonder of the English language, really. So I just thought we would start with that this lesson. Okay, so the big question for today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the challenges of learning English. Now, some of this lesson is going to be essentially me just kind of discussing points and topics with you and for you to get them down, kind of like lecture notes, okay? But then the second part of the lesson, it is pretty much over to you. So the big question is, why is the English language such a challenge to learn for both children whose native language is English and for people for whom English is not their first language? So it is obviously people for people who are non-native English speakers, it is difficult to learn English, but it isn't just for those people, it's for children as well. And we will be doing child language acquisition next year, when we will be sort of looking at this and the kind of struggles and challenges children do face when they are learning the English language, because it is very difficult. So I want you to think about what makes the English language so difficult. Now in the top box it says ideas. I would like you to just jot down any kind of ideas you have in relation to that question, answering that question for now before we kind of delve into the actual lesson. So we just want to pause this clip and write those ideas down, please. Okay, so what we're going to go through now is notes. I'm just going to be going through a few factors as to why the English language is actually really quite difficult. And I just would like you to write ideas that I talk about down under the right subheadings for me, please, as well. So the first thing we're looking at is language is not a fixed entity. And we have discussed this. I've discussed this with you when we were looking at how language has been impacted today and how it's changed in the past 6 months as well. It's constantly undergoing shifts. It's never fixed. It's always evolving. And there's all sorts of change that impact it as well in terms of technology as well, and social media and how that impacts it as well. So, and of course political change, and there's loads we could talk about there. You can also talk about, for example, recently, which has kind of been overshadowed at the moment, Brexit and how that has impacted language as well. And we have kind of phrases like regrets and remain, those kind of words that have come into our vocabulary due to that kind of political change there as well. So yeah, language is constantly changing, and because of that, it possibly is more difficult to grasp for people who are learning English as well. It's definitely be one factor there to consider. The next factor is speaker identity. Now, we will be going through the diversity side of the course soon as well, where we look at, the idea of how region influences and impacts language and social groups, gender, age, all these kind of things. But what we're going to be looking at is, how language changes depending on who is speaking and writing, because it's different for everybody. So a big one that we're going to be looking at is region as well. So obviously, our country, we all speak the English language. However, or most of us, however, we don't all necessarily use the same words to convey the same meaning. I'll give you an example. Even the slightest thing as a greeting, okay, even the slightest thing as a greeting, where in terms of saying hello, we have so many variations of hello and greeting people in the English language that may be quite difficult to understand. So, for example, you've got the kind of the Yorkshire "eh up" as like a hello, how are you? Or if we're going for the Geordie, you are right as well. So it would be difficult, I guess, for people who are learning English to not only learn hello, the basic kind of greeting that of the English language, but also all the variations of hello that come from different regions as well. So that's really, really difficult for people. You've also got, with accents, there's different paces of language, elongating different sounds, different vowel sounds in words. So yeah, it's really, really difficult, possibly to pick up on that as well. Social and economic factors, social groups plays a massive influence here. So the social groups that you are in, even the friendship groups you are in, you have your kind of own sayings, your own language that perhaps a different group might not understand as well as your group of friends do. And I kind of, it's like a secret code that kind of reinforces that bond, that friendship, um, that you've kind of like made with people as well. Age, so you've got the idea of use of slang with younger people perhaps, and idioms, and of course the idea that no, there's no universal way of speaking at all. I mean, when we talk about accents as well and dialect, I remember when I went on holiday one year, I met a friend who was from Plymouth, and even though we both spoke the English language, this person was unable to understand a lot of what I said, more because of the pace that I was speaking, but also some of the words I used as well, which is quite interesting. Um, Idiolect. Now, this is a new word, guys, perhaps for you. So if you want to get the definition down, please do. Idiolect is just a speech habit of a particular person. Okay, so the words that you have accumulated, the words that you use and phrases you use on a regular basis that perhaps someone else might not. People do have common phrases that they tend to use quite a bit, and that is part of your idiolect as well. So yeah, that's a definite factor on how it can be quite difficult to pick up and understand the English language because there is literally so much variation. Next we have culture, history, and heritage as well, which is all obviously woven into our language. It influences and impacts our language, but it's constantly changing as well, which does make it difficult to decode language and phrases sometimes. So we're looking at Shakespeare and the amount of phrases, words, idioms that he coined as well. I'm in a pickle, the green-eyed monster, those kind of things that we look at in the idiom lesson there. His language has influenced our language today. Historical events, wars, invasions, industrial revolution, rebellions, all these kind of things influence our language as well. What's happening today, the pandemic, I would imagine in the future we will look back and be able to say that historical event has impacted our language because now we use words such as the R rate, such as lockdown more often than we did before. Social attitudes as well, and of course industry history. So all these things influence our language, but they're also changing constantly. So that's also could be a factor as to why it's difficult to learn English. Okay, the next thing we've got here is irregularities and contradictions. So the English language is very complex, not only because we've got a variety of language to learn, but also because of the irregularities within our language in terms of tenses, plurals, just grammar in general. So in terms of tenses, someone who isn't a native English speaker has to understand the difference between when we use the word go or went, win or won, broke or broken. In terms of plurals, there's always that thing where if it's a plural, you need to add an S on the end, but that doesn't actually work for the likes of sheep. You can't say sheeps for fish. We don't say fishes, we literally just say fish. And the same with mice as well. We do not say mouses, we say mice. So there are just a few irregularities that will make it quite difficult for someone who is learning English to actually understand and use as well. Homophones is another one here, guys, and you might have come across homophones before. It's basically two or more of words having the same pronunciation, so they sound the same when you speak them aloud, but they have different meanings and often different spellings as well, which can be quite difficult. So for example, we'll go for the first one. There's the there, and there. So basically, there as in over there as in there as in a possession, their dog, their cat, and of course, there in terms of they are. So three different meanings there, but the same word. It can be quite complex for people to understand. It's same with here and here, son and son, two, 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 and so on. And people do get confused. Even adults get confused sometimes, even between the 3 twos and the 3 theirs as well. So that's definitely something that's going to make it difficult for someone to learn English. Okay, next we have idioms and unclear language as well. So idioms being this idea of a saying, a familiar saying to us, which has a figurative meaning. So for example, you've hit the nail on the head, you've hit the hay. Euphemisms is kind of what a euphemism is, guys, if you're not entirely sure, and do please write this down as well. It's basically a use of a word or phrase to replace another one, possibly quite offensive word to make it less offensive as well. So, for example, moon landing instead of referring to someone's bald patch, or I'm going to powder my nose instead of going to the toilet. Those would be euphemisms as well. So it's this idea, guys, of, it's really complex, our language. It's sometimes the surface meaning of what we're trying to get across, of what we say, is not actually the hidden meaning that we're trying to get across. There can be two kind of meanings to our language, which can be really, really difficult for people to grasp as well. Sorry, I'm starting to run out of time, so I'm just going to have to quickly move on. Borrowings, we do, different languages influence our own language. For example, words such as ox, grass, pig, tree, they all come from the German grammar and they're German words as well. And we tend to know 5,000 to 15,000 French words as well that we kind of use. And I mean, even just déjà vu, that's French as well there. Okay, guys, so that was a quick run through of that one there, but I am running out of time and I need you to do a couple of tasks. The first one is, you've got 4 internet memes about language. I would like you to read them. If in pairs, that's great. If not, that's fine. And talk and write around the side what they show about English. So I'd like you to pause this clip and do that now for me, please. Okay, guys, and the final task I would like you to get on with, which is on this slide, you have an article to read. What I would like you to do is read the article, and at the end of it for me, please, I would like you to answer this question again in your notes, but in a paragraph, just sort of summarising everything we've gone through this lesson. Okay, guys, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy getting on with those tasks there.